There's a certain kind of person that's really strange. They feel completely comfortable hanging out outside with friends, but the moment someone suggests coming over to their house, they suddenly feel extremely stressed. Be honest. Have you ever felt your chest tighten just because of a message like, "Hey, I'm standing right outside your place"? You type back, "Yeah, come in." But deep down, a part of you is quietly panicking, mourning the peace that's about to disappear. You rush to clean up, fix your hair, and force the brightest smile you can manage. But here's the truth. The happiest moment for you isn't when the conversation is happening. It's the moment you hear that click of the door lock after the last guest finally leaves. And the strange part is, science shows this feeling isn't rare at all. A lot of people go through life carrying that quiet guilt. They think they're selfish, weird, or even a bad friend. But that's not the truth. You don't hate them, and you're not weird. Today, we're going to break down the psychology behind this and why it's actually a very smart survival mechanism of the brain. There's something most people don't really understand about those who have what you might call a fear of having guests over. For many people, home isn't just a place to live. It's more like a mental recovery station. You know that feeling after a long, terrible day at work, when you step through your front door, kick off those stiff dress shoes or painful high heels, and just collapse onto your bed? Your chest feels lighter, your whole body relaxes. That's not just your body being released. Your brain is letting out a sigh of relief too. In social psychology, this is closely related to how people adjust their self-presentation depending on their environment. Think about it. From the moment you step out the door in the morning, you're constantly performing. You burn a huge amount of energy just managing your facial expressions, controlling your tone of voice, and forcing polite laughs at your coworkers' not-so-funny jokes. To maintain that socially acceptable version of yourself, your brain has to stay in a constant state of social alertness, always watching, always adjusting your behavior. Your home isn't just walls and furniture. It's your only real safety switch. It's the one place in the world where that mask is allowed to drop to the floor. The one place where your brain gets the signal, "You're safe now, turn off the alarm, switch to recharge and recovery mode." So when someone steps through that door, even if it's your best friend, your brain immediately triggers an extreme warning signal. Red alert, safe zone breached, put the armor back on right now. Guests don't bring relaxation. They bring pressure. The pressure to go back into survival mode in the one place where you're supposed to be allowed to be vulnerable. So from the outside, people might think you're cold, distant, maybe even a little uncaring, right? But here's the paradox. The exact opposite is true. In fact, the truth is so contradictory. It almost feels ridiculous. Look at how you actually show up in your relationships. You're the kind of person who would jump in your car, drive 20 kilometers through the rain at 2 a.m. just to meet a friend at some random cafe and sit there while they cry and rant about their terrible ex. You'll stay for 3 hours, give thoughtful advice, pat their back, and even pay for the drinks, with endless patience. But take that same friend, same story, except now they're sitting on your couch, crying in your living room for over 2 hours. On the outside, you're still nodding with empathy. But on the inside, you're screaming. An invisible stopwatch in your head starts ticking, counting down, thinking, "Oh my God, when are they going to leave? Should I start clearing some cups as a hint?" Part of the answer comes down to control and having a clear exit. When you meet friends at a cafe, a park, or a restaurant, that's what we call a neutral space. In a neutral space, you have full control over your time boundaries. If the conversation gets too heavy or your social battery runs out, there's an easy way out. You just check the time and say, "Oh wow, it's getting late. I've got an early day tomorrow. I should head out." You decide when to disconnect. Boom, you're free. But at home, that control disappears. You become a hostage to your own politeness and hospitality. You can't just stand up in your own living room and say, "This was great, but please leave my house now." Without a clear exit strategy, your brain slips into a quiet state of stress. The guest's open-ended presence turns what should be a pleasant hangout into a psychological endurance test. Now take a look at yourself right before a guest, one you actually agreed to, shows up at your door. It's such a fascinating phenomenon, it could honestly be material for a science documentary. You turn into a completely different person. Normally, when you're alone, you're perfectly fine living with a pile of unfolded clothes sitting on a chair for 3 days, or a few dishes soaking in the sink from last night. But the moment you get a text like, "I'll swing by in 15 minutes to grab something," you instantly spiral into a cleaning panic. Suddenly, you become a nuclear-powered vacuum cleaner. You're scrubbing every corner of the bathroom with an old toothbrush. You grab all the clutter and shove it into some hidden corner of your closet just to get it out of sight. You straighten the couch pillows with almost mathematical precision. And the funniest part? The second your guest walks into your now lemon-scented, spotless home, the first thing you say is, "Oh my God, sorry, it's kind of messy right now." Do you have obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD, about cleanliness? Not at all. This is a natural defense mechanism called impression management, driven by a deep fear of being judged. For someone as protective of their territory as you are, your home isn't just walls and furniture. It's a direct extension of your ego. When someone looks at your living space, your brain doesn't think they're just seeing objects. It feels like they're looking straight into your soul and judging your worth as a person. A dirty coffee cup on the table, to your guest, is just a cup. But in your mind, it's a flashing neon sign that says, "My life is a mess. I'm a failure who can't even take care of myself." So you're not cleaning to make your home look nice. You're cleaning to build a perfect fortress, to protect your self-esteem from judgmental eyes. That cleaning frenzy is really just you putting on armor. You're trying to eliminate every possible risk of being judged, and that line, "Sorry, it's kind of messy," is just a preemptive psychological move to lower their expectations to the safest level possible. Once the guest is settled on your couch, another survival mechanism kicks in. At this point, your internal air defense radar system quietly powers up to maximum. Picture this. Your guest is holding a glass of ice-cold water. While chatting happily, they casually place that wet, dripping glass directly onto your expensive wooden table. No coaster. On the outside, you're still smiling, still nodding, still responding to their story with perfect charm. But inside, your eyes are locked onto that drop of water, slowly sliding down the glass, about to touch the wood. Inside your head, it's a full-blown war between two thoughts. Relax, be polite, it's just a little water. And if I don't jump in and wipe that right now, the table will be ruined, everything is slipping out of control. Or when they ask to use the bathroom, your mind instantly fast-forwards into a horror movie. Did I hide that bra hanging behind the door? Is the toilet paper roll facing the right way? This isn't pettiness or nosiness. In psychology, this is a form of heightened sensitivity to small changes in your environment. You have an extreme sensitivity to what you might call the energy of a space, the psychological imprint that another person leaves in your personal environment. When you're alone at home, your energy fills the entire space freely. But the moment someone else steps in, that space gets split apart. They breathe your air, sit in the familiar dip of your couch, move your things. Every small action they take feels like a strong disturbance to your invisible sense of safety. You're like a spider sitting still at the center of its web. The guest is like an insect causing tiny vibrations at the edge. Even if those movements are harmless, your entire nervous system still has to send signals back to the center to process them. You're tracking every move they make, not because you dislike them, but because your brain is being forced to constantly calculate whether your safe boundaries are being threatened. One half of your brain is socializing with the guest, the other half is running 24/7 security surveillance. And then the miracle happens. The guest checks the time, stands up, stretches, and says the most beautiful magic words in the world. "All right, I should get going." There's a quiet, deeply real moment of celebration inside you. The kind you'll carry to your grave and never, ever tell them about. It happens right after you walk them to the elevator, wave goodbye with a bright smile, which is actually the happiest smile you've had the entire time. You turn around and step back into your home. Like I said at the beginning of the video, click, the door locks, and phew, you let out a long, heavy sigh. So deep it feels like your chest just collapsed. Slowly, you slide down and sit right on the floor, or drop onto the couch like a 50-kilogram bag of cement that just had its straps cut loose. You close your eyes tight. No talking, no screens, just silence. Science even has a name for this: social hangover. It feels exactly like the aftermath of the worst hangover of your life, except you didn't drink a single drop of alcohol. What's really happening in your body at that moment is a kind of chemical crash. For hours of hosting, your brain has been running at a high level of stress and focus. You've been draining your cognitive energy to read the guests' emotions, keep conversations flowing, hold back your anxiety about that wet cup on the table, and protect your territory. Once the door closes, the threat is gone, and all that built up tension starts to release. Your brain is like a computer that was forced to run 100 heavy browser tabs at once. And suddenly, everything gets hit with end task. It needs complete quiet for your nervous system to slowly return to balance. You're not tired because of them. You're tired from the effort of holding yourself together the entire time. But if we stop at exhaustion or defense mechanisms, we're missing the most important part. Because underneath all those steel solid boundaries, behind that always locked door, there's a quiet sadness that belongs to you. Picture this. You're lying on the couch in one of those drained, worn-out moments, grabbing your phone and scrolling through social media. On the screen, bright, lively clips of other people's lives pop up. A weekend backyard BBQ, laughter everywhere. A dozen people gathered around the kitchen island, kids running all over the place. A home with the door always wide open, where anyone can drop by for a meal without needing a reason. Suddenly, a wave of emotion hits you out of nowhere. You wonder, why can't I be like them? Why does something as simple as inviting the people I truly care about over for dinner feel like torture instead of joy? Is something broken inside me? This is the sadness of longing for a normalized version of yourself. People with guest anxiety like you don't hate being social. In fact, you crave connection. You crave a sense of community. You genuinely, deeply love your friends. And that's exactly where the most painful psychological conflict begins. The tug of war between a heart that wants to pull people close and a nervous system that's screaming to push them out the door just so you can breathe. How do you even explain to a close friend, I love you so much, but your presence in this room is draining my energy, without hurting them deeply? You can't. Human language wasn't built to carry that kind of harsh truth. So you lie instead. You come up with silly excuses. I've got a deadline this weekend. My plumbing is messed up. I've got a bit of a headache. Every lie you tell adds another brick to the wall of guilt. You get stuck in a very strange kind of loneliness. The loneliness of knowing you can be an amazing friend out in the world, but once you get home, that door has to close to keep your soul from falling apart. That sadness doesn't scream, it just lies there quietly, like a doormat right outside your door. However, if you're looking at this entire psychological pattern as a weakness or something that needs to be fixed, then it's time to shift your perspective. Pushing people out of your personal space is not a tragedy. In fact, it's something incredibly beautiful. The next time you turn down a friend's request to come over, but quickly respond with, my place is kind of a mess lately. How about we meet at Starbucks? My treat. Don't beat yourself up. Don't think you're hiding something from them or that you're a bad friend. What's really happening is a high level of self-awareness about your own needs and limits. You understand how your brain works under pressure. You know exactly where your battery limit is. You realize that if you force yourself to let people into your home just to be polite, you'll end up giving them a version of yourself that's tense, awkward, restless, and completely drained. So instead, you set a boundary. In a modern society that constantly pushes be social, that pressures us to always be open, to say yes to everything, your ability to say no to protect your personal space is a sign of real strength. Strength isn't about tearing down every wall and throwing your doors open to the world. Strength is knowing exactly where your walls stand and having the courage to protect them. Your home is a fortress, and a fortress with closed gates doesn't mean it hates the people in the village. It closes its gates to heal the soldiers inside, so that the next day, when the gates open again, they can step back into the world with their brightest, fullest, and kindest energy. When you refuse to let people into your home, you're protecting the quality of your relationships. That's not selfish. That's the highest form of self-love, so you can love others the right way. So if you're the kind of person who turns the TV volume down low, tiptoes around like a ghost, and feels your heart race every time someone suddenly knocks on your door, take a deep breath. You're not broken. You're not a bad person. You are completely normal. You're simply surviving in the way your nervous system asks you to. Every frantic cleaning spree, every awkward excuse to avoid guests, Every moment you reinforce your boundaries. That's not social withdrawal. That's how you protect your peace. Hold on to that fortress because in a noisy world, we need people who know how to protect their silence. And if you see yourself in today's story, hit subscribe and share this with a friend you have in mind. Because here, we're not just learning about psychology, we're learning how to understand ourselves. There's still so much you don't know yet. Click here to keep getting smarter. I'm Apex. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any videos. See you next time.